the semester ago. Because Mr. Carpenter is like, I was like, oh.
Want to test it?
Tempting.
Oh, no. Bigger. Board is bigger.
I don't know. That's sounds cool. Or, I mean, I don't know.
There's only 5 people presenting today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's gone.
Wow, we were in the red and now it's 5 people? What happened to everyone?
Well,
There's just this flu going around.
I think everybody switched to present online. You gave the
For
option.
that one up. But
Yeah.
that really wasn't an option from us.
Okay, that's fine.
We don't
Not
have that
letting
many
us go
weeks in
into
the
the red.
semester.
So speaking of weeks in the semester, I've been doing some math.
Yeah.
The math isn't lining up. with
Right, we don't have that many weeks in the semester.
No, but like, okay, so not including Thanksgiving, there's only 13 weeks total. And we didn't have an assignment due the first week, so that leaves 12 weeks. That's the exact minimum of like the 5 presentations with the 7 papers. But then there's also supposed to be an extra
2
week.
more.
Yeah, well, and an extra week for the LinkedIn paper. I'm trying to figure out how this math works.
It doesn't pencil out. I think we're trying to do too much in not enough time.
There's
We'll see.
Yes. Are we still? Okay. We're not coming here on the 21st. Right,
Of December?
of December.
Never goodness no.
November.
November.
We're not coming here on November.
Correct. We are
Yes,
not meeting
sorry.
week. You don't have other classes Thanksgiving week, do you? Or do you?
in the, at least like a presentation sign up, it says we have class and presentations the 21st.
Right, I have to switch that, because it
So-
was on the
so it's
calendar,
reversed.
it switched, because on the calendar at the beginning of the semester, it said the 28th. So that's when I penciled it out
Okay.
for the university Thanksgiving break, but it's the 21st.
Okay.
So I agree with that.
2024?
So we have enough
Correct.
chances left to definitely finish presentations. How many are there? Yeah, so we won't have class. There's
Always talking.
there's enough, and then for papers too, there's
I'm not supposed to do it.
the content is still gonna be posted because we go, I don't even know if it's posted yet, but for this class. Yeah, in like these weeks. Posted yet.
Yeah, one of the weeks the content's posted and then another week it isn't yet.
Okay, so,
Humanitarian work psychology got posted.
oh, perfect.
That's the most,
But that one we're not having class that week, right?
It's getting moved to
yeah,
the
it's all
fall.
moving.
Okay, it's pumping back.
It's just adjusting.
Wait, what do you say got posted? You mean
So,
they're
yeah, this is,
locked right now?
this is
Yes.
next week. And a lot of it is, well, that's an article. And then it looks like a Facebook video. So yeah, these are all like still chances to turn in.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. How is everyone?
Good.
Good, good. It's Monday, so welcome to Monday. Fresh start effect. It's like a new day, new week. It's fresh start, right? I was excited. It's definitely sweater weather because it is like cold and rainy. So I don't think it can get better than that. Like you got the right jacket for it. You're perfectly dressed for this season. It's good. Any fun things to share? Any good things happen over the weekend? Fun celebratory events? Yes.
I got a job.
Hey! All right. Woo!
Starting today.
You started today?
I woke up at 4:30 a.m.
Oh.
I've not woken up that early in like years.
Is that going to be a regular occurrence?
On Mondays.
It's your job.
But oh, I'm an HR representative for payroll. at Ross Corporate, like Dress for Less.
Hey.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, exciting.
That is exciting. Where is it at? Which city?
It's in Moreno Valley, Mobile.
Okay,
Mhm.
very good.
So
Cool. Well, that is exciting. Very cool. It's always fun to celebrate new jobs. Yeah. Any other fun things? Celebratory events? Things to share? Yeah.
My friend got married and there wasn't a fight at her party. Like every party there's a fight.
Oh, wow. Is that how things happen? Oh,
I
okay.
wanted to vote myself as a bridesmaid, but everything went well.
Okay. That's great. Well, happy wedding, friend. That's great.
I'll let her know.
Yes, yes. That's great. Wasn't a fight. Low bar. That's pretty good. I like that. No one got stabbed. This is delightful. Good. Any other celebratory fun things to share? Let's see what happened in my household. Yeah, go ahead.
My girlfriend's older sister got engaged this weekend,
Well,
so
hey,
we had a little surprise party.
that's fun.
Yeah, it was maybe a bit too much of a surprise.
Yeah.
It was, cause like she showed up with her fiance and there were like 50 people there. She was like, "What?"
Like
So-
immediately after being proposed to.
Within like, not immediately, a couple hours.
Oh, that's immediate in my mind. That's immediate.
It was
But
like,
you're still-
3 hours or so,
Wow,
but
that is immediate.
it was, everybody like, thought that she had caught on. And so no one really thought that it was gonna be a huge surprise, but it turned out she had no idea. And so
Wow.
it was a really big surprise.
Very big.
And yeah, it was fun.
That is fun. It's good to have those celebratory events commemorated with 50 of your closest friends and family. I'm trying to think what happened in my children's lives because my life kind of revolves around theirs sometimes. They played soccer. They did great. My daughter scored another goal. She's doing awesome. My son, they played at the same time, so I didn't get to watch him. But he told me he scored many goals.
In the right goal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He knows where he's going. So, yeah, he did well. Daughter did well. We had a really nice time. It was a pretty chill weekend. Just had all sorts of relaxing, fun family time. It was nice and cold some of the mornings. So went to breakfast with my dad. That was fun. You know, all the good, like, old person stuff. Sometimes half the year. My parents are here half the year and in Michigan half the year. So they're out here. So yep.
What part of Michigan?
Grand Rapids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of it. But I don't think I did anything else. So I'm doing the good stuff. Okay, so are a lot of people sick or people scared about presenting on this material? I just heard a lot of people shifted. So just shifting. You're all here, so you're like, I don't know, I'm here. I don't know what happened to the Don. I got one email that Adam is sick, but so keep him in your healthful thoughts. What are we talking about first? All right, I want to give a brief synopsis of some articles, and then we'll get into the material. So we are talking this week about change management, org dev, change management stuff, right? So a lot of students want to pursue this particular avenue in IO. It's seen as quite prestigious to do strategic development, organizational change, sustainability, all that kind of stuff. Because the salaries tend to be quite high in this area. Also because to have this type of position means you're fairly close, if not on the C-suite, C-level, chief whatever, chief marketing officer, chief operating officer, chief humans resource person. Yeah, what's Kirsten?
I'm hearing that term and I wanted to ask what it meant, but then.
Yeah. So in that sense, these are fairly high level positions that require quite a bit of experience. So you need 5 to 10 years of experience at a managerial director level before you get into the change management kind of position, typically. I will say though, you can kind of shortcut that with relevant experience that has clear, marked successes, where you can say, this was an initiative I headed and it had this effect, right? With some type of data to represent that. Because when you're talking to C-suite type professionals, they understand basic data, right? You're not going to talk about some hierarchical linear modeling or something, but you could talk about effects like the downstream effects, return on investment. You could even talk about effect size, right? Like R squared or eta. They might not know the terminology, but they'll get effect size, practical significance. How much does this matter, right? Like how much percentage-wise, how much impact does this thing have on that thing? And they'll get that because that's what they deal with on a regular basis. So in terms of your ability to communicate to upper level management in that sphere, if you can say like, I developed this program and it had a 25% reduction in turnover, that's pretty good, right? Like that's amazing. But that would be one way in which you could establish credibility in that regard. So that's what I would say, just to get you started there. The Yoast article, I'll start with that. So I've met Paul Yoast. He's a great guy. I really like him. He works at SPU. He directs their IO program. Rob McKenna was the person that was directing it before, and that was it was where Dr. Iverson went to school. He went to SPU. So I went to SciOp in Chicago, and Dr. Iverson introduced me to all these guys, all his like professors and faculty and stuff, which was a great time. And then we went out and had dinner and stuff with Dr. Yoast, and the guy like does not stop in terms of like, he just wants to keep the night going forever. I was out with him until like 2 a.m. He was amazing, like just talking forever. We just talked about research and labs and the work he's done. And it was so fun. He's such an awesome person to just hang out with. And he's just game. He's game for anything. I wanted to go karaoke, but the night was already late. And we wanted to we had like conference stuff the next day. I was like, okay, let's all go to bed. We got stuff to do. But anyways, he does a lot of really great work. He's quite an accomplished researcher. He's incredibly data savvy. He's solid, like a really solid researcher. Some of this is fairly complicated analyses. Some of it, the exploratory factor analysis stuff, it starts to get on the fringe of like, ooh, that's fairly nuanced technical stuff that we don't delve too deeply into because it's so specialized, hyper specialized. That said, though, some of the easy statistics that I want to talk about for you, and really the take home for this particular article, page 22, table 3, is the strongest correlates to success, the overall success, value to end users and stakeholder engagement. Those two things, I think, if you can capture those two sentiments and really drive that idea, take that notion with you wherever you go in some type of pilot program, initiative, any type of new developmental strategy you're trying to create, that's who you want to really focus on. What are the stakeholder experiences of this product? And I'm not talking external facing product development where you're crafting some new iPhone. I'm not necessarily talking about that, even though that could be a part of maybe a team that you're on. We're dealing with people. What product are they dealing with? The product they're dealing with could be their experience, their user experience at their desk or in their standing location, wherever they are, whatever type of work it's in. We want to have impact on what people are doing, like knowing what people actually do, and then trying to have some type of meaningful improvement on that experience. If you can change or work experience in such a way that they want to do the thing that you're introducing, you're going to win. right? That initiative, that program is going to be successful. That change is going to be accepted. Because at the end of the day, if the product's better, people want it. It doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't really matter what it costs. We'll figure that part out. But we'll find a way if we want the thing. The other part, stakeholder engagement. So do the people that benefit from the people doing the work, the user experience, do those people believe in your initiative? Do those people think, yeah, that program that they're trying to develop, that health and wellness initiative they're trying to facilitate, or that training they're looking to spearhead, or this new change in structure that we're trying to do, if they believe that's going to have a marked improvement on the work experience and productivity or lower turnover, whatever for your workforce is trying to actually accomplish, then those are the people that are going to ensure that it happens as well. So that's the other part of the success that's so highly correlated here. You have end users and stakeholders. That's what matters the most. Those two things by far are the most important things to get right. The small caveat that I would say to that is leadership buy-in. You got to have leadership support. If the leadership support is there, it doesn't have to be overwhelming support. It just has to be like they'll give you the go-ahead. They're not going to stop you from doing the thing that they want you to do or that you want to do. They're just going to allow it to happen or be in full support of you. It's better, but as long as you got the go-ahead from the key decision maker, leadership, whatever that may be, that no one's going to like pump the brakes and stop you from doing something great, then the next thing you should focus on is actually the end user experience. I know for myself, like I really care about like making work awesome, making work a really enjoyable, wonderful place to be, being incredibly productive and performing at your optimal level as often as possible. I know it's not possible all the time. I get that. But as often, as frequently, and for as long as possible. I also studied like positive psych and launching different types of interventions to help people be happier. So health and wellness programs are also kind of within my purview. And I'm not going to say this nameless, shapeless organization, no association to them whatsoever. But I get emails about this like health and wellness, like, hey, this is, and there's so much like bureaucratic, like red tape to like get through to actually do the thing supposed to make you happier at work. They put as many barriers there as possible because I think there's some notion, like the idea, we all know that the barriers to do something make you less likely to do it, right? Has anyone ever bought something and there was like a rebate on this thing, like a mail-in rebate? You know what I'm talking about? They exist. And you think like, oh, it's like $100 off this thing. All I have to do is cut out part of this box, find where I'm supposed to send it, make sure it goes to the right place, attach my receipt, put on postage, send it in the mail, and then wait 3 months and get my. Now, what's the completion rate of something like that? Why don't they just mark it off $100? Because they know the more barriers we include here, people won't do it, but they'll discount it in their mind and still buy the product. Like they're not foolish, they're dumb. They're going to get as much out of the product as they can get and try and sell it in unique ways. So I say that to remind you of sometimes promoting something means removing barriers. Sometimes trying to get something accomplished means make it easy for people to do the thing you want them to do. Whatever that is. If it's showing up on time, make it really easy to show up on time. If it's, some task at their desk, if it's, taking a break every 4 hours or something, just find a way, make it really easy to get people to do whatever it is you want them to do. And that's part of the change management strategy that I would try and facilitate, right? Like using some type of incentive, but also keeping in mind that removing barriers is also one of the most powerful things we can do. All right, that's the Yoast article. Any questions, clarification? I don't want to get too deep into it because I don't know what presentations are going to be on it. But in a nutshell, that's what I would try and take from that. Good? Cool. Okay. What's this one called? Vandevon and Son. So the breakdowns and implementing models of organizational change. This one I found, I was gonna say funny. It's not funny, but that's the word I think of, because they're academics, right? And they talk and write like academics for academics, and that is a journal, right? But all right, take home with this one what you might want to understand through their perspective. If what they say is true, that's all the caveats to any journal article. It starts with one model, right? We all have an understanding of one decision-making model, and they have some, what do they have? Evolution, dialectic, teleology, and life cycle. So they have these different models of like how things function. And I think from going through and reading it again, it's fascinating that they have such a programmatic, like mathematical view on like how to calculate, facilitate these different things. Helpful, but I would encourage you, it starts with one model. It starts with one understanding, meaning like if you really understand competitive change, evolution, if you really have a clear understanding and use case of that, that's what you're going to use most often. I think I gave the example or analogy a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So that's what they're trying to say here. We start with one. We learn what a hammer is, and we learn to get good at it, and we use it. And so everything looks like a nail. You start to use it and hit things, you realize like not all nails are responding the same way, and you realize some of them are screws. And so then you have to search out new models of change. And that's what they're trying to describe here. There are different models for understanding how change happens. Not that they can't happen in some other model or form, but recognizing what is the most appropriate model for this change that we're trying to facilitate could make it a lot easier. So the funny part that I thought of here is, or just observed, this is what every like academic does. Like we all do this. Like we make like figure 2, I don't know what page this is on, page 68. 2 is this incredibly elaborate, terribly complicated model with lines and drawings and circles and arrows. And then this little caveat at the bottom, like note, arrows and on lines represent likely sequences among events, not causation between events. So they're even like trying to give qualifiers like, hey, we drew these lines, but don't interpret them too closely. Like don't look too closely because one's not causing the other. We're just trying to show that there's a likelihood among this relationship to be like influential in some way. So they're like really trying to be careful. And it's just such an overly complicated, terrible model for trying to communicate something. Like there's no way anyone's going to look at this and be like, oh, I get it. Like never would that ever happen.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of liked it.
I when I see it, I'm like, that looks like, you know, those like really complicated assembly lines and machines where like it's all like churning out like this stuff and like, you know, things conveyor belts over other conveyor belts. Like it looks cool. It looks really cool. I just don't see use case where you see like a problem and you're like, okay, here and then it's like this really difficult thing. I'm not opposed to it, but almost nobody outside of academia looks at a problem through this lens. It just doesn't happen. So I thought it's overly complicated. I like their assessment and understanding of problem solving and breakdowns of implementations, but it was an overly complicated model, which is, I just see myself in it. I think that's part of it. I've made these types of diagrams before. It's like, oh, wow, no one gets this. Like, no one will ever get this, but it looks cool. All right, questions on organization change, the Van de Von and Son. So find the right model to fit the problem that you're dealing with, essentially. But learn one first, right? It starts somewhere. Just learn one, get really good at it, then try and learn the next. The last one's the most simplistic in my mind. The team tools for wicked problems. Really novel, complicated problems take really novel, complicated answers. The takeaway here. Has anyone heard of big, hairy, audacious goals, BHAGs? You've heard of them before? So That's what I think of when I read this. It's like, yeah, they're just talking about different terminology, different kind of perspective on this, but big, hairy, audacious goals. Like they have these very complex dynamic models with many moving parts. It takes a multifaceted, multi-pronged approach to be able to tackle this as a whole, but in small part, you could do meaningful things. So I liked it. I thought, that's just kind of what went through my mind as these complicated issues are trying to be described in simplistic, identifiable ways. And did anyone watch the Ives Moreau TED Talk? Yeah? Is he French?
Yes. Very.
Okay, he's very French. I enjoyed him thoroughly. I've watched it a bunch of times now, but I really like it. It was like 6 simple suggestions for these like complicated, but the way he contextualizes the complicated business model and typical process, I think was really good. Where he's essentially talking about to solve some type of problem in our systemic like model, right? Where we have these like really complicated models, and he takes something very much similar to this. He puts it on the board and he's just like, this is insane. Nobody functions like this. To fix this problem, we're just going to introduce like more elements here, like more middlemen and more pieces to this deeply mechanical puzzle. His approach was like, well, hold on now. That might not solve it. So if you haven't seen it, I would recommend it. I think it's an interesting way to perceive or to look at business problems and solutions to those business problems. I don't know to what extent his solutions work. I haven't tested them out myself, but the ideas I think are simple enough where you're really just trying to understand the problem more intimately and more deeply to be able to address it more succinctly. Good. Questions or thoughts, reflections on any of the articles, Ives Moreau or Morio? Any thoughts there? Was this helpful? Yeah. That's
I
good.
do remember seeing that table, and you said you liked it, but I remember seeing it and I was like, how on earth would I explain this to my family? I was like, they won't get it. They don't get anything. They won't get that, but yeah.
They don't get anything.
No, never mind.
I like that. I like that. So I don't know if I before because we haven't taken statistics yet, which you will. So it's exciting, right? It's a good time. But something that I try and convey and practice on a regular basis in like statistics or complicated ideas, it's called the grandmother principle. So if you've heard of it before?
My I don't want to spoil your thing.
Yeah, but go ahead. Spoil away. There's not much to it, right?
I guess, yeah. My supervisor at my practicum right now, when I write up reports, there's like a tendency to write it like a lot of psychological jargon.
Yep.
And she's like, how about you rephrase that as if you were trying to convey this information to your grandmother?
Perfect.
And I'm like, all right.
That's what it is. That's the whole, the grandmother principle is you say this again, but tell it to your grandmother. Say it in a way that would help your grandmother understand this. Because what it forces you to do, and I love the idea, what it forces you to do is to understand something so well, so deeply, so at its quintessential core, that you can take this overly complicated, really difficult idea and condense it down to like something simple. Like telling the truth matters. Or I had a friend that he identified when musculature neurons develop in shrimp, right? He spent like 8 years like in a lab at a university, and it took him forever, and that's all he did. And it reminded me, there's this, like these academic cartoons, some of you have shown some of these to me, and there's one, it might have even been like a Reddit post. It was like, explain your dissertation in like one sentence. And it's like the most heartbreaking thing, because it is so like, we have these highfalutin ideas, right? We overcomplicate with jargon and all these qualifiers and contextualizations and all this, and we try and my PhD was how to make people happier. That's it. That was it. That's all I was trying to do. How to make people happier. And then there's all these other ones, like a whole bunch of like very simple ideas where we spend years of our lives, hundreds and hundreds of pages of writing and research and context and all this data and everything. We're like, oh, well, turns out, people just need a hug, right? Like just simple stuff. So explain it to your grandmother. That's a good lesson, I think. We can all benefit from the ability to do that. It's not easy. Like it's really hard to do that. Really hard to do that, especially when you're trying to communicate data. Like, how do you do that? I try and encourage my students to do that, as will you next semester. All right, so how many presentations do we have? 7. All right, let's do it. Who's up first? Yes. How exciting! Okay, get in the zone. Get ready. Let me get my stuff out of your way. Do you want me to zoom the camera in more closely, like frame?
Just right on Jency.
Yeah. I can do that. And for your own benefit,
Yeah.
hide it. Right. Yeah, you don't have to see it. It's now hit. It's like it's not even.
Also, you guys will need a pencil.
What about
Or a pen.
a writing utensil?
Ink pen and
Oh, it's gonna be.
So we have some stuff to pick up afterwards.
If anyone knows the contact information of those that aren't here or in your group, they could log on to YouTube and find on the website or on our Blackboard, they could click on our YouTube channel and be here watching and still give feedback. So for those that aren't here, for those that are here that know people aren't here, if you could tell them that.
Could you sign in one more time?
Did you break it?
No, we just turned off the recording. I don't wanna be recorded.
Actually, no feedback, thank you.
As soon as you said that, you're
As soon as I said that, they
Oh.
literally just shut it down. They really just shut it down.
Because we thought that she was trying to sign into the IO.
Right. I'd open like this one, so you could do that on this one. That's fine. You just broke everything. It's still going, so I don't know. I don't know how to do that. Let's just assume it's still going.
And the light's still on.
Yeah.
So.
That little red
Oh,
recording light,
red
the
dot.
fake recording light is on.
Is it fake? I thought it was real.
No, I mean, it's just on a browser on a tab, right? Oh, by the way, we just signed out of it. It's okay. I did the same thing to myself a couple weeks ago.
How's everyone doing today? Good.
Better than expected. Doing great.
Why were
Do
you
anything fun this
expecting-
weekend? No.
Why is it better than I expected? I thought I would be more tired than I am. Doing pretty good. I love this weather. I'm such a fan of this weather.
I'm a fan of the weather, not a fan of the dark.
I'm summer
The
baby.
darkness is kind of tough.
I got moved to California. Sorry.
But you could, I don't know if you have time in the afternoons, but I find myself like going outside because I know it's gonna be dark. So yeah, I just want to enjoy the sun because I know it won't be here. When I'm leaving.
One of my coworkers kind of restated it. I was like, I hate it. It gets so dark so early. But he's like, well, I wake up with the sun, so I wake up early and I'm more productive in the day and things like that. I was like,
Not
wrong.
Yeah. Good for you. Well, for Luke, I mean, waking at 4, up with the sun.
It was dark when I got there. Yeah, I wasn't even up by, yeah. So it's not even worth it. No, just kidding. Just today though. Just today.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's why.
What time do you actually start work?
Oh, never mind.
On
Yeah.
Monday, 6 a.m. and then it goes until 2:30. Every
Oh,
Monday.
because of-
Because they were flexible with class, but then every other day it's 8 to 4:30. So that's nice. Yeah,
It looks different on
it'll be
here.
dark by 4:30.
Is it just cause it's light?
You wanna dim the
Turn
light?
off the front light. Turn off the red dot light. The recorded light.
Just hit some buttons.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just
all the buttons, whatever you want.
Oh, not that one.
Oh.
Ooh, that's good.
All
It's
but
like
that
all
one,
but the one
opposite of that.
Yeah, there.
Yeah.
There we
Is
go.
that fine?
Looks good,
Oh my gosh.
not that one.
Okay. Okay, hi everyone, I'm Delore.
And I'm Jency. Today we're gonna talk about the spirit of inquiry.
Ooh.
Right. So we've gathered here today for a board meeting. In case any of you guys forgot, you're all invested in Fuller Films.
Hey.
So everyone over here, you guys are all executives. The first two rows right here, you guys are stakeholders, and the last two, the rest of you are all employees. So just keep that in mind while this presentation goes on.
Yep, so basically, Fuller Films has just been accused, rightfully so, by a disgruntled ex-employee for lacking diversity. Even though we promote it, we preach it, we breathe by our diversity and inclusion initiatives. So for context, this ex-employee was actually a person of color who quit after being passed up for a rightly deserved promotion. And she sent out a mass email to the entire company, basically telling her very opinionated side of the story. And now executives are noticing morale is down across the company and
Right, so we're here to brainstorm some ideas on how to address this problem. You guys all have some Post-it notes in front of you. You're just gonna take one of them and write down one initial question. But keep in mind, that phrase is gonna start with what if, what is, what should, or what can.
you have 30 seconds to do that.
Just one?
Yeah,
just one
question on one sticky note.
Oh, because we have more than one. Don't mess it up.
And
we're trying to solve the problem.
Yeah, so some examples of that,
Just like a conversation provoking question.
it can be what if we change our hiring process? What are the demographics at our place of employment?
Yeah. Kinda got like 10 seconds.
You guys need a little bit more time to speak up.
Okay, I think that's good. I see some eyes coming up.
Right. So we have some breaking news. TMZ just blasted Fuller Films on social media. The title was Promotion Discrimination at a billion-dollar company. Employees are threatening to leave now. Everyone is upset, and the talent acquisition department is now noticing a decline in applicants.
So the plot has obviously thickened and we are convening again, brainstorming again. Please write down on a second sticky note, one more question, starting with one of the following here, to provoke some more conversation.
We're on the wrong side.
Good thing you can flip
There
it
is
right
no wrong
over.
side.
Okay, so we're gonna stick it up there, I bet.
Oh.
Just
Are you?
couple more
10
seconds.
more seconds.
All right.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting a call actually. Oh, look at that. We just found out that multiple investors have actually pulled out. So due to public outrage, this is what happened. Our cash flow is low, so we have limited resources now to solve this problem. So one last question, please, on the third sticky note that you have.
And keep in mind your position at the company. You're either an employee, a stakeholder, or an executive. So you're kind of thinking in that mind frame.
Can you repeat the group that we're in? We're
So-
executive, so.
Maybe another 10 seconds on that. And then as you guys are finishing that up, just put your pens down, keep those to your, keep the sticky notes with you, because we're gonna circle back to those in a second.
When you're ready, just look up so we kind of know. All right, perfect. So next up, we want to discuss, is this a tame problem or is this a wicked problem? Wicked problems are more complex, often don't have one real solution, while tame problems are well-defined and have a clear way of tackling the problem. So just shout it out, what kind of problem did you guys think this was?
Wicked.
All right.
You are correct. So, Pakanowski, I believe is how you pronounce his name. That is the one article that me and Chelsea really, really, really liked. The rest of them were kind of has zoned in on this STAR model here. This is basically supposed to depict the 5 different components of ways to combat complex issues. And it was formatted in a star as opposed to like a list or numbered off, because they're all actually equally as important and they're all connected. So that's why I've got a cute little star here. Obviously today we are kind of focusing on spirit of inquiry.
So the spirit of inquiry is supposed to have a collective understanding of the problem at hand. A lot of times people jump into their way of thinking and they don't want to think about how their coworkers view an issue, and we end up losing a lot of insight and good ideas as to how to tackle a problem. This tends to create a win-lose situation as to one person in the group will be right and everyone else's answers are wrong, and it doesn't always have to be like that.
These are the spirits, by the way. Little ghosts. So there's 2 techniques that were discussed in the reading. First of all, being question brainstorming. And I know all of us are obviously familiar with brainstorming itself, but question brainstorming is more so thinking of all of the questions as opposed to possible answers and solutions. And then don't evaluate anything, just make sure to try to relate the questions to each other and find those connections. And then a extension of that was color questioning. So a lot of people tend to favor certain just because they naturally think in certain ways. So color questioning basically encourages questions from all those different facets, all the colors of the mind, to kind of highlight those multiple ways of thinking, make sure you cover all the bases.
All right, so while we go over these colors, try to think about the way your questions align with these colors. Green is very creative thinking, and so it's characterized by ingenuity, idea, imagination, oftentimes opens opportunities and new pathways to think and challenges the status quo.
And then blue is actually judgmental thinking. So it's a lot of use of logical reasoning and personal evaluation to form judgments and figure out what the actual right thing to do is. And it's going to be a lot of action-oriented thinking to eventually go to making a decision.
Red thinking, on the other hand, is descriptive thinking. This is facts, data, accuracy driven. Oftentimes, this sort of thinking is analytical and focusing on information through classifying and categorizing. While red thinking likes to think about things in a very neutral position.
So hopefully everyone's been able to accurately categorize their sticky notes. And if everyone would like to get up and stretch your legs.
You want different sticky notes?
That was said.
It's okay.
I'd like you to come up and stick your sticky notes where they belong.
Can you go back to the slide?
Yeah, we can go back a slide if you need to refer to that.
I thought about you when I read that.
saw that.
If you have any questions too, just shoot them out. Spirits, see what we did there.
So good. I know, like, it was really good.
Huh? Oh my gosh.
I saw this. I love this thing.
Thank you, it's from Uniqlo. Oh, I wrote it upside down. Sorry.
Really? Yes. Oh, I talked about that presentation so many times now.
You have new color
Whoa.
Nice job, Kay.
Just go ahead, it's fine.
What do you want?
All right, thank you everyone for participating in that. So we knew that there was gonna be two different types of scenarios that was gonna happen. One was gonna be that everyone has a variety of different ways of thinking as a whole, like this class, like we would be a good group because everyone kind of went everywhere. But the other scenario would be that
would be, I'm kind of far away from it. One of these could have completely ended up empty and could have been completely filled up in the other colors. So that would have just highlighted a lot of lack of way of thinking within the group as a whole. Maybe we need to put a little bit more intention into highlighting like the reds or the greens because there was a little bit of lack of it. But honestly, we were pretty evenly dispersed. There might be a couple reds that are less, but that's fine because we all know how to read and get the facts. So I think that that's a good thing that we are not lacking creativity or judgment. So.
next up, some key takeaways that we want to wrap this up with. We want to highlight some of the ways that color questioning is used in team environments. It helps promote collaboration, teamwork, and ingenuity. We can promote a thriving work environment with all kinds of creative approaches when we use this sort of thinking.
And hopefully throughout the actual scenario in the beginning that we painted for you guys, you were able to kind of step outside of the box with each complexity as it came, encourage a little bit of creative thinking and challenge your original questions that you had the first round. And also hopefully this presentation and this whole activity could have been a little opportunity for individual reflection, see the way that your own answers gravitated towards. Helpful in future cases when you're picking your consulting groups next semester or for the next 2 years. If you were a really green thinking person, go find someone in the reds and blues or vice versa.
So this is kind of where we're lacking. So maybe all of us team up with people that have some fact-based questions, just something to think about. But regardless, thank you for your time and we hope you enjoyed this presentation.
And those are supposed to be various spirits of inquiry, if you guys didn't catch it.
Oh, wait, was I doing the only feedback? Oh, we have
It was
time.
only 5.
Yeah, we have time.
Yeah, we got time. All right, go ahead.
I thought the whole theme of it was really cool, but I like how your guys' participation, what is it called? Activity, yeah. I'm so good, I'm blanking on it. It was very blue, it was very creative. And I like.
That was great, yeah.
Did you listen?
Let me start over.
Your
activity was amazing. Very green, very creative, and I like how it kind of spanned throughout the whole thing, where it wasn't just at one section and then we kind of forget about it, but you kind of tied it in and immersed it throughout the entire thing. One thing I was curious about was if each different section, employees, managers, had a different color sticky note. And so maybe that different position allows us to think differently, and then we could see it with like the different colors, like managers maybe are more blue, maybe employees were more, but that was one thing I was just curious about, but otherwise, great job, love the activity.
Thank you.
I thought it was very original and I think that you guys broke it down really well. And it's very digestible.
Even with like presentation together, it's all red, blue, and green in the background.
Yeah.
So when you guys first started, I was like, well, the spirit of what? It's always super cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah.
It can't go anywhere. It was fun. I really liked it. The activity I think was really fun. Everyone seemed very engaged and was highly motivated to like respond and pay attention to you, right? The engagement increases dramatically when you give us something to do, but also in a fairly quick time frame. Like I was hustling to try and get those done on time, but that just means I'm more engaged, right? I like have to sit more up, and I have to pay more attention, I have to listen and hang on every. So in that way, you really get your audience fairly focused, right? Now that we could make mistakes, which is fine. Maybe we write them all on one card instead of all three. I'm not saying anyone did that, but it's possible. And I think the other thing that would add to it potentially is to very quickly like read off a couple, because I think everyone wants to hear like what are some of the thoughts, what are some of the ideas that people put forward that are just maybe I never would have thought of that, or that's an it's another way to respond to or show appreciation for the participation, because you had great participation from everyone, which you facilitated really well. Like you got all the sticky notes out beforehand, very welcoming tone, and the directions were very clear. It was easy to do, right? There wasn't much difficulty in the actual preparedness and execution of it. So then as a thank you to the audience, like maybe recognize and acknowledge like, hey, these are really great questions. Here are a couple of our favorites or something. It's hard to do in such a short time frame. Person speaking, maybe the other could have done something like that just to grab a couple off the wall randomly. Might have like just been like the icing on the cake, but it's really well done. I loved it. I think you did a phenomenal job. Well done.
Thank you. We could read.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How y'all doing today? I hope y'all are staying warm. Yeah, it's getting pretty cold. So I'm doing a presentation on the process of change. By show of hands, has anybody here tried to maybe lose weight or gain weight or become healthy? I have, okay. Has anybody ever failed at it?
Yeah.
Is anybody failing at it? Has anybody been successful at it? Okay. Is anybody comfortable with sharing how they were successful at getting their goals with maybe weight loss, weight gain, less screen time, maybe healthier habits, working out? Okay, Cameron?
I lost like 60 pounds a couple years ago through
Wow.
Noom. So I started with Noom and I just stayed with like everything that they had taught me, and it was really successful, and I was able to keep like all of it off until I got to like a healthier weight, which was a little bit higher than what I had lost.
Congratulations. Are you like a new ambassador?
I am. They do pay me to do some stuff.
Oh, wow. So just in case anybody is trying to get on Noom, you should talk to Chandler and get
Yeah,
on link. Abraham, yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't say successful, but one thing that helped me while trying to like go to the gym and be healthier was I got a yearly calendar.
Yeah.
A big one, and then I'd mark it each time I'd work out or do something that I was trying to track.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the month, I'd tally it up. It's like, okay, I increased a little bit or decreased a little. How many times am I trying to go, and just visually represent that?
Yeah.
And it would also like, it'd feel good to like write it, hey, I did something today. So that's what I did to stay motivated and keep going.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing actually. You know, I was thinking that I would be like the only person that struggles with setting goals and keeping them and just trying. Every so often at the beginning of the year, beginning of the term, I set these goals, lofty goals. I want to lose weight, I wanna be more active, I wanna sleep more, less screen time, do all these things, make positive changes. And then I start by saying, for example, I'm gonna set a goal to lose 30 pounds in 12. Anyone listening to that would know that first, that is a lofty goal, right? And that is almost a formula for failure, because I'm setting a goal that would maybe set me to fail because 12 weeks sounds like a long time, but really isn't a long time. And 30 pounds, if anybody has ever calculated what a pound in calories is 3,500 calories. That is a lot. So setting goals and making changes is really not easy. So the article Van der Van and Son, they talked about this process of change, and people and organizations make plans to make changes, right? And my presentation talks about the process that these changes occur. So what is this process of change? It is a sequence of events that occur that people take strategic changes. They make planned steps to changes in their lives, either individually or organizations. So for example, you wake up, or I wake up, I say, this year I'm gonna lose 40 pounds. And I'm motivated, I spend all this money that I don't have, I buy gym gear, I buy water bottles, and I go, first day, I'm motivated. Did you know that the 14th day of January is National Critters Day? Because by the second week of January, a lot of the gyms are already empty because people are already their New Year's resolutions. I am motivated and I'm going to lose this weight, and I keep running. It's like these people are trying to get me. So by the time, what is the thing that tries to get me to change my behavior? I walk up the flight of stairs, I'm winded. I get out of bed, my knees hurt, my back hurts. My body aches because I don't feel great in my body. I need to make changes. I bought these jeans from when I was in high school, and I've been saving them because I'm trying to fit into these jeans, right? But I need to take these jeans to Goodwill because I'm never gonna fit in these jeans. But I've been holding out that I'm gonna fit in these jeans. So I go to the gym, I work out, I set a goal that I'm gonna bench a certain amount of weight. I set a goal that I'm going to run as fast as possible. I set a goal that I'm going to do certain things. And these things, I think that I can do by myself. I set a plan that I have going, but because I can't do these things on my own, things happen. My friends want to go out to eat. Hey, you want to go out to eat? It's like whenever you set a goal to do something, that's when people have all these great plans. All the restaurants have these $1.99 promos. That's when McDonald's has all you can eat food. I mean, is it just me or I guess it's just me. I'm just a foodie. Because every time I try to lose weight, that's when, there's all these great promos going on. Have discipline, So by the second week in a row, I lose track of my goals. And so the last time that I tried to lose weight, I decided to change something about it. I decided that, okay, you know what I'm going to do, instead of doing this on my own, I will hire someone who has the motivation to help me. So typically when breakdowns happen is because our natural state, our natural inclination is that we want to just relax. We don't want to stress. Working out is painful. Anybody ever aches and pains of working out? Oh yeah, like you don't want to get out of bed. You just want your mom. I want my mom. I just like, mommy, just come help me. So I hire a coach. I hire a nutritionist. I hire people that would help me in the process of making changes so that eventually I can maintain the change that I want, right? So in order for changes to occur, you need support, because during the process of change, breakdowns typically happen. So how do we remedy breakdowns? First, we have to set SMART goals. We have to get people, accountability partners that will help us in the process of setting goals. We have to think critically about the goals that we set in the process of change. I can't say that I'm gonna lose 30 pounds in 12 weeks. A more realistic goal would be maybe 20 pounds in a year. Because with weight or with any change that takes time, there will be fluctuations up, down, and setting measurable goals will help reduce the ups and downs in the change process. So that is all I have, and thank you for listening.
I like how you related it to health and fitness, because I know you said you thought you might be the only one, but I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to in either direction, and so it made it very applicable.
Thank you.
I like that you gave us time. You were telling your story. I was able to listen to that while I was reading your slides. So it's like you didn't read over the slides, but you were telling the story that was relevant to what was on the slides. It was really helpful. Really brought it home.
I think you had great examples that everybody, it's really nice to be easily to participate because the questions pertain to everybody. And you also modeled that so well by saying, has anyone else, I'm here with you, I'm in this with you, has anyone else, in addition to me, so it's not asking anyone to venture out on their own and admit to something that they're not confident or embarrassed about or something that. That was a great strategy for inviting people into participating with you. I thought that was really nicely done. The content I really enjoyed. I thought it was unique and a pretty clever use for the specific change model. I thought that was really appropriate, right? It makes sense. And you had great humor in there. Your jokes were really good about National Quitters Day. I hadn't heard that before, but I think it's really funny.
It's a real thing.
I believe it. So I appreciated that. And I think it's very relatable in that way as well. I think recommendations for the future, maybe some actionable content at the end of what are some quick tip strategies for achieving goals. Here's something you can do for your next, small goal, whatever it is. You did have practical things about hiring trainers or hiring people to help in that process that are motivated to keep you on track to facilitate that change. That might not be feasible for everybody though. That's maybe an expensive endeavor to a small thing, right? Some small, okay, here's for your next time that you're struggling with a goal, try this. And I think that might have been a really good way to end it. Other than that's thank you for your time, which is solid. It wasn't a bad ending by any means, but always trying to improve, right? So that would just be a thought in terms of how you might improve. Just to have some actionable content at the end might leave us with a take home, right? Something oh, I can't wait to try that idea. Just see if it works for me. So just a thought, but appreciate it. You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Idigo again. So how are you? How's you doing?
Great.
Great. So I'll be more on the change management side for this thing. And I would like to ask certain questions. Most of you guys carrying some experiences in your life. So I would like to know that, have you do you take any kind of initiative in an organization or try to take an initiative kind of a thing? So what kind of an initiative?
I worked with an organization that it was every single department was very isolated and there was no communication happening between us. So I pitched to our leadership team how we could grow those communications and have meetings with overlap and hopefully improve our system so that we weren't reproducing the wheel in every.
So do you give any suggestions to solve this thing or bring change in that thing?
So my suggestions were to kind of have some meetings together instead of all isolated with just the departments, and then to have kind of some group chats where we could ask common questions for each other.
Actual change happened.
No, it got shot down.
Alright, so yeah, I'll just come up with this thing like anybody would like to share? Yeah, please.
The last company I worked at, we had a Jewish referral person, and they would refer all of these clients, but we didn't have any way to accommodate like their kosher diet. So then we had one admit over the weekend and nobody like knew what to feed him. So then I like researched like kosher law, and then I came up with a whole like implementation of how we can like order all of their food, or we keep all of the kosher stuff because you can't put like meat and dairy
Yes.
together. So they ended up using my training and then they still using it.
Okay, so it went well
Yeah.
in your case, yeah? Somebody, yeah?
Yeah, at the accounting consulting firm I used to work for, we were trying to cultivate a culture of external networking with some of the more junior associates, but because that's not something that most people out of college are comfortable doing right away.
Exactly.
And so before we focused on external consulting, we thought it would be wise to develop an internal
Exactly.
networking culture where they're comfortable networking across departments and up and down the
Yes.
sort of hierarchy. And so we created a program called Meals with Management, which is where a partner and the senior manager would take a group of more junior associates out to dinner and cross departments and it really just created an atmosphere where dialogue and thought questions could be asked, and it wasn't meant to be technical at any level. It was just meant to provide a space where networking was taking place, conversations were happening organically, and it was just developing confidence within the staff and seniors to be able to talk with people with much more experience than them, and just learn how to have like effective dialogue. And so that went really well and created a
So it's kind of a permanent thing that the organization has adopted, right?
What's that?
That's a permanent things that you have changed in the internal process. Like there are the external consulting they're off, and right now they are just working in an internal way. That's a permanent change they just brought. I'll be just also going to speak on the permanent change itself in the presentation. So yeah, the changes are sometimes like we try to change it, but it's not a permanent change. It's changes over the period, or like if we take the initiative, sometimes it gets failed. So I have in statistics with me that how it fails. I'll just be talking about the change initiative statistics, success, and the failure factors. And I'll be talking about change management model. In that, I'll be talking about the golden rules of change, what are the 3-stage model it is, and practical steps for using the model. I have one small clip in that. And what are the criticism of this model? So why, like in each change, why we cannot fit this model? So yeah, there is a criticism about this thing. So yeah, why change fails? So these are the top barriers in the major change initiatives, like competing resources, functional boundaries, lack of change skills, middle management, long IT leads, communication, and employee opposition resistance, initiative fatigue, and unrealistic timetables. So these are the percentages that if you're taking any initiatives, why it get fails, what kind of a percentage of failure chances are having while we are just taking this initiative. So these are the statistics that I have found it out from one reference site, that these are the percentage why change fails when we are just taking the initiative in the change. And why it gets success, that these are the successing factors about one organization achieve their goals. So good communication is the top thing. That's the 100% thing that if you communicate really well, so change will get succeed. And strong meditate by the senior management or stakeholders, you can just say. When there are like changes in the goals or changes in the deadlines, targets, that's also affect the change. And we have an adapting plan, having access to adequate resources. If we have adequate resources, so also we can make our change successful. Some statistics that I have found out that once we are just taking any change in the organization, how the successful factors affects those things. Moving ahead to Levin's change management model, it's a simple 3-stage model, and what are the golden rules for applying this model it is. So change should be implemented for the good reason. First foremost golden rule of this model. And change is the most effective when done gradually, like step by step. It should be not like that. First, we should be doing this change. First, we're doing that change. Yeah, do step by step. Next thing is it should be planned. So it should not be like suddenly we have to take one decision and like from next day onwards change. It doesn't happen. Change requires times. It will not change like from next day onwards. So it's a continuous process. It's not in like in a day you can just change the whole thing. Last one, as much as possible, you can just try to collaborate individuals and make them know that what are your plans is, so that nobody can lose out that where they are going. So organizations are affected when management just take out any kind of a change into the picture and they are not aware about where they are going. And suddenly they just start feeling that it's not working out either way. So there it's going to start a failure in the change thing. So try to gather as many team as possible in the organization to make it successful. This is the model of this Levin, unfreezing, changing, and refreezing. What's unfreezing is, what's changing is, and what's rephrasing is according to the organization. So unfreeze is ensure that the employees are ready to change. They're ready for this change. For example, if you're introducing any kind of an software training or any kind of a system into the organization, new training into the organization. So everybody will be knowing about that the change. So we should be ensure that each and every employee are ready for the change, or majority of the people are ready to accept this change or not. Then change, execute the intent change. What are the action plan that we are introducing? Are we going to train them like in a group session, or we are taking team by team or entire organization in a particular period of time? So we should be having an executive plan for the employees. The last refreeze, ensure that the change becomes permanent. I was just talking with you that, yeah, you have just talked about that there was an external thing. Now you have built into the internal thing that I was talking that, yeah, ensure that the change become the permanent. And you just told that, yeah, the change you want to brought, but you haven't done it, that, yeah, that was not a permanent change. So that this process like break down over there in the refreeze thing. So yeah, this unfreeze, change, and refreeze. This is the cycle of the 3-stage model. This is a small clip that to show regarding resistance to change. So it's a YouTube link. I'm sorry for this advertisement. I hope it's audible.
People are not necessarily afraid of the change itself. I know. What does this mean for me? For some, these concerns can be about confidence, attachment and familiarity with the current state, not prepared to consider the new. And for many, it's the ghosts from previous negative changes experienced and how it affected them. What is important to consider is that resistance to change is natural. It's our fight or flight human response system to a change in our environment. So what can we do to help people who resist change? Firstly, as a change practitioner, we need to realise that we can't eliminate resistance. We can minimise resistance by first understanding and diagnosing the source of resistance. and developing tailored solutions to help make the transition to future state easier and more comfortable. Some of these solutions to me, communicating as early as possible about the reasons for change, involving direct managers and team leaders in linking personal reasons for change, getting people involved to engage and participate in change-related activities, providing a safe and open forum for two-way communication and answering the difference. What's in it for me? Giving back on how people are progressing through transition and provide support. Having where possible a clear picture of what the future will look like for them. And providing positive feedback to reinforce the small wins along the journey for change. When people are resisting change, it's not necessarily that they are opposed to the outcome or the future state. Change can be personal, and there may well be reasons beyond our knowledge or control. In these circumstances, it's important to understand that we may not be able to eliminate resistance completely, but we can definitely minimise it from the start and along the journey.
So yeah, this is a small clip of this thing. So we cannot eliminate this thing, but surely we can minimize it, this thing. Because once change is going to happen, yeah, that will create a difficulty in an organization. So moving ahead about the criticism of this model is like the change comes sudden way, like pandemic just came into the picture. So it's kind of a change in people's life. So Levin's model is failed in this thing. So yeah, this is where this model is not feasible in today's world also. In technological sector, it's not at all working because technology is updating every now and then. We cannot change. This kind of a model helps when there are the old technologies or old patterns are using every now and then. We can use this model over there. This model is successful over those sectors where like there's a tradition of building any kind of an end product, for example, a traditional manufacturing unit, a traditional machineries they are using, or to increase the sales, they can introduce a new machinery into the manufacturing unit to increase their sales thing or increase the productivity of their products. So there, this model can be applicable. But on the services side, where every now and then the change is required into day-to-day life, so the model fails over there. So lastly, when I was just studying about the change management, so I learned that whatever model suits to your organization or whatever models you want to apply for the change thing, so it's an ambiguous thing. Mistakes will happen. So you should be very passionate about that, and you have to be very diligent about this thing. So the final thing is that keep taking action and commitment with diligence. You will get there in the end. So thank you.
I appreciate how you always have really good insight on organizations, clearly through your experience without having to explicitly say it. It just shows. And I think you had really good command and authority over the room. I would say the video, unless I felt like when you played the video, it almost lost a bit of that.
Yeah.
Because unless it's, if you did it like a quick and effective, like more to the point video, I think you could have kept that momentum, but I felt like you lost a little bit there.
Yeah.
And if you were to use it, I'd say take it to the point, because otherwise I'd much rather listen to you, because you're really good at presenting. So other than that, great job.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed how you ended it on like that final recap and encouragement to say like, hey, it's ambiguous, that you're gonna fail, but to keep at it. And it felt like if I was receiving this presentation at work, that would be a very critical thing for me to hear at the end. So I really appreciated that.
Because nobody is going to see that what kind of models that we are working. They're focusing upon how they are going to change in the organization. They would be requiring rather than focusing upon that. I just felt those things. Thank you.
Appreciated the criticisms of the model at the end. I thought that was really insightful. I think oftentimes we can read these models and just sort of assume like, oh, they just work, you know?
Yeah.
And so you saying it does work in the right context, right? But in these contexts, it might not work, was like really helpful perspective in terms of then thinking about next steps of like application, you know? And so thanks for reading that in. I have just one very minor critique, and I hate that my brain even thinks this way, but like with some of the percentages on the slide, they got a little bit unformatted.
Yeah, actually it's worked. Actually, it's wrongly worked in the system. I have
Oh,
just made
okay.
this transition in my laptop. So yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, so my mind like
Yeah,
sees that, and then I'm like, I lose the slide
Yes,
because my
actually,
mind
I
is
also
so
just
detailed
lost
on
when I
it.
was just doing this transition.
Yeah, okay, well then there you go.
My mind goes that direction, any type of like misalignment or something.
Yes.
But I don't know, was it intentional to like highlight some of them as blue or kind of a bluish gray, or maybe that was just my eyes, but I saw some of the lines and highlighted.
This was like a major thing that where change fails, like the blue one. And the success factors about the communication, that was a 100% thing. So yeah, communication is a really key point
Yeah.
for making it successful.
Right. I was just saw on the previous slide lines that were blue and the others were black, so I didn't understand the distinction between them. So if there is something different between those categories, then to explain that would be helpful. I think like Abraham said, the video didn't add value, it just took time. And your presentation went long, it went quite long, it was about 14 minutes. So it's about double the time that was allotted. So you just have to be very conscientious, careful about what you include, how much content you want to try, because asking for 3 different examples, having a video incorporated and a detailed and lengthy presentation won't be possible in a 7-minute presentation. So being more selective about what you're going to include, practicing that beforehand to time yourself and see like how long it's actually going to take to do these things might help. And then you could filter out like, okay, this isn't gonna work, right? Like that video, it doesn't have the impact for the time that it takes. Your own insights do have impact that we can't find it. And I agree with Kevin and Abraham, like that's where the real content lies. That's where the real value is from your previous work experience, from your insight and reading of the material. That's what gives the most benefit to the audience, less so on a video that, I mean, the video is fine. It just wasn't very impactful. It didn't have a lot of like really hard hitting kind of information. So that's where I would offer some improvement, right? There's where some possibilities there.
One thing I would like to add, actually I saw that there are so less people in the presentation, so I can just grab some time for presenting. That's the reason why I extended this thing. So I just keep practice in my mind that it's going to this take long, but I just, on the very next moment, I just change my mind. There's only less people today presenting. I have to
Yeah,
extend.
well, that's a possibility, but part of this structure
Yeah.
is to try and synthesize, right? And really pare down some of the more complicated ideas. If you had the intention to take more time, preface with that, saying we have a little bit more time today. Would it be okay if I gave a 10 to 15 minute presentation? And then we could restructure maybe some of our expectations to have that. But to just do it is a different thing.
Okay.
So thank you for that, and I appreciate your agency in that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, I'm Purvita again. Today I'm going to speak about organizational development and a little bit of OD and change management process. So OD is a critical and systematic process that helps organization to build their capability to change and achieve greater effectiveness by developing, improvising, and reinforcing strategies to structure and process. 3 points in definition, in this definition, that is changes, effectiveness, and improvement. So the main goals of organization development is to align employees with the organization's mission. It's very important to educate employees about the organization development and structure, which aligns the mission for the employees. Problem solving, solving critical problems for the employees is very important because that will sharpen their skills and knowledge for better working productivity. Third is encouraging them to participate in the planning process. Involving employees in the planning process is very important. That will actually help them to understand what is the organizational structure, what is the hierarchy, and what their goals are and their responsibilities. A friendly environment in the organization is very important, as well as to make the employees and workers comfortable. And last but not the least is effective communication channel. Communication between the management and the working workers are very important because that improves the working and that drives them to give them a better productivity towards their job responsibilities. I would like to speak about change. Shifting to change, what is organizational change? This is the process by which business alters key components of the strategies and the operations. This may involve changing of work culture, changing of certain technologies, as well as certain shift in organization structure. For example, when I was in Amazon, I was in HR operations, and I was hired in a certain position, but there was a redesignation of the whole HR department, which resulted hike. So I was hired in a certain salary within 3 to 4 months. There was a whole redesignation, and there was a 50% increase of salary as well as the position. So that was a very good change. American Psychological Association says that in 2017, there was a survey conducted which said that employees who had undergone through a very big change has, undergone severe stress, work stress, and chronic physical health symptoms as compared to employees who did not face any changes. So I know change is a very big thing which impacts a lot of employees, and since employees, as human beings, we have a very innate nature of getting into a comfort zone, getting into a habit, and when change hits us, we are not ready to adapt it. But there are 2 types of changes: adaptive changes and transformational changes. Adaptive changes are minute, small, incremental changes which which the business actually adapts over time. But transformational changes are maybe in a large scope and scale, like merger and acquisitions in a company. So this actually hits the direction of the business. It has a radical shift, which results in huge changes and a hit to the employees. So it's very important for the organization and the management to prepare employees so that they can actually accept the change. So as you can see the model, there is a process change. There's a change process which the employees normally have. So first is denial. When the change happens in the organization, employees are in a denial mode that they're not ready to accept the change. They deny if this is really required for us, if this is necessary because I'm good in my working environment, the structure is good. But when they cross the denial stage, there's a resistance to change. They do not really want to accept the change, so they have the tendency to resist. After the resistance phase crosses, there's exploration stage where they have accepted that this is the change which is happening. Now I got to explore and find new opportunities, maybe, like educate myself or sharpen my skills or maybe do some cross-cultural learning. When the exploration stage crosses, there's this new energy to give a commitment to their job responsibilities. As a result, there's a drive to a better productivity. Resistance to change has three main factors: intensity, source, focus. Intensity would be like, if a manager knows what is the intensity of the change which is coming from the organization, it's very important to prepare the employees that this is the intensity of the change which is going to come, and I'm going to prepare you guys to like adapt the change. Source would be belief and values, that I have got these beliefs, I have got these values. Do I really feel the need of change? And focus would be focus on self. Employees do believe at times that if the change is coming, is it really important? What is it in for me? Am I losing or gaining anything? Then the focus shifts from self to the peers. If this change, how is this change affecting my peers and colleagues? And the second factor would be work environment. If this change which is coming is going to affect the worker environment and the culture, is it going to be better than now? So it's very important also to overcome the changes. I would like to give an example of an organization which happened with Netflix. In 1997, Netflix was launched. So it was an alternative of brick and mortar video in rental stores. You could go to, instead of walking into the Blockbuster, you could actually hire a DVD, watch it, watch the movie, and mail it back to Netflix, the stores, rental stores. So when streaming came into the service, into the picture, it's Netflix thought that maybe this is the best time we can actually introduce streaming service, because they could actually foresee the future, that streaming is the next future of entertainment. So in 2007, they had introduced Netflix streaming, and now you can see Netflix is a huge platform where there was a huge change. And can you ever imagine the world without Netflix and chill? I'm sure you can't. I can't. So this was an example. Another example I would like to give: Google had acquired Android. Android is a very small software company, and which had got acquired by like Google, because their tools of Android actually had developed the company into a very big market. They wanted to compete with Microsoft as well as Apple. So now you can see Google have a few other companies. So this is an acquisition and merger where it's a huge change, and it is very important to also understand the organization to overcome the changes. So there are a few points. Understanding process of change. The process of change does include preparation, implementation, and follow through. It's very important for the management to actually understand the process, how it is implemented, educate the employees, and also follow through the employees so that they can have a process as to what they can adapt. Communication is a huge important tool for the company to understand where the employees are lacking. The managers should prepare the employees as to what they need, what are the skills they need to adapt, as well as they need to follow through. Prepare for the roadblocks. Preventing employees should also understand that they need to prevent the obstacles and hurdles so that they can adapt the changes. Also embrace new opportunities. Like any acquisition or merger happens, you can always find a new opportunity, new position, always do cross-cultural learning. So it's very important to have that attitude, the change, accept it, not resist it, and embrace new opportunities. And so is positive and proactive, staying positive and proactive throughout the changes, because I have seen in my organizations when I've worked, there were few negative and few positive changes while I had worked. Maybe like in a positive way where there was re-designation of my position, I got a salary, there was a motive. But also when I was in Vodafone, there were minute few negative changes, like changing of within a couple of months,
and we were not educated, we were not prepared for that, it gave us a lot of setbacks. So it's very important to prepare employees, communicate to the employees to understand what they are going through, what will they be going through, and relating their job KRAs to the values and missions of the company. Last but not the least, as said by Mangelo, American memorist, if you don't like something, change it. If you're unable to change it, change your attitude. So it's very important, be it personal or professional. Change, we need to adapt change. As we know, change is the only constant. It's very important to work on yourself, be it personal, work on your skills, and accept new changes so that you can be a better human being. Thank you.
I really love your slides. I love the pics and the font and just the layout and everything. I thought it was really well done. And then I think you're always like very well informed. Like you have so many examples in the real world of ways that change have happened in these corporations, which is awesome to know of, and so many examples in your own life. I think what might be helpful is if you like zeroed in on like one or two of them and kind of tracked with those examples throughout the presentation, so we can see how like what you're saying played out in different stages of those changes. Like if you can find that information, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise it would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, I just also want to acknowledge, like, I felt between the first, is this your second presentation?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I remember in the first one, it felt like there was a big improvement in not kind of reading off the slides, and you felt like you had much more command of your content and what you wanted to say, and that was really noticeable between the first one and this one. And so I just want to like say well done. Clearly, it was either the content that brought out a lot more like joy and passion and just sort of, desire for you to present. I just knew it better, but whatever it was, it came across much more clearly and articulated. And so well done. Kind of to Kirsten's point, just maybe something to consider for the examples and how they correlate to the slides.
Oh.
I think there were 2 slides where you went to the slide and then it took quite a while to get to the actual content on the slide because you were sharing examples, and the examples were good examples. But maybe consider it. What it makes me feel is like, oh, when are you going to start talking about the content on the slide? And so maybe consider either adding in another slide that quickly bullet points the examples you're sharing about, or hit the content on the slide real quick and then say an example of this would be, if it's relevant. But just something that I noticed.
Yeah, I wanted to give that examples when I was talking about transformational changes where there's huge merger and acquisition happens, but I think I lost the flow there.
Yeah,
So-
that could have been its own slide, I think. I was thinking that you could have like adaptive and transformational change. on it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's well done.
Thank you.
So one small critique I have is that I noticed when you started off, you were more so giving eye contact to Dr. Fuller, and as awesome as he is, there were times where I'm like to kind of, share your joy and your attention with us. But then there was a certain point where you totally hit your stride, and I noticed because you stepped the furthest away from the lectern, and your body language, you were very much more confident, and so I think you alternated a few times, but when you were turning your attention to us, it really made a large difference. So kudos, and you got there, and I was excited when that happened.
I know, in the first presentation, I was just looking at Dr. Fuller, and then I realized that I need to shift my focus to people because I think I get nervous when I look at people, but then, thank you, I will.
He's the scariest one.
Thank you. Yes.
There is a difference, actual difference for the first presentation and this presentation. Surely it is. It's a really good change, I can just see. Seriously, you have just worked on the feedback.
Thank you, Neetu. I actually went back and I actually segregated all the feedback. I looked at the feedback and I literally studied what I need to work on.
Yeah.
So it's so nervous, but thank you for the feedback, guys.
You did awesome.
Yeah, I will say, I try, like, when students are looking at me too much, I will like just stop looking at them. So I feel you, in the same way in that I want them to kind of move away, get to the whole room and be able to like shift, look around. And I try and facilitate that as quietly and as comfortably as I can without like just like directing, right? Like, so you responded really well. Like you did catch your own stride and you got into the content, started telling your own stories. To that, I think Kirsten and Kevin were right on with saying, make it really succinct in like one story, one organization. In a 5 to 7 minute presentation, you really have one example. That's the volume of you can try and get across in that time frame. And in that, you can hit it many times, that one example, and take us through what change looks like in that personal example of what was it like for you to change from this massive shift in Amazon to where there was an enormous you started in one place and then fairly quickly moved into another role with different job descriptions and different salary attached to different expectations and really a very different lived experience might be lived experience in that from your perspective that ties really well into the notions of change and the identifiable ways in which people acknowledge, first deny, and say like, no, this isn't happening. Is this real? Am I good enough? Can I actually do what they're asking me to do? To then trying to like resist it in some way, like, push back, like maybe I should look for a different job, or maybe this isn't the right time for change, or, any of those real lived experiences, if you can like think back on that time, about more personally what it was like for you. I think generally what we find in classes like this and any type of speaking engagement is those very personal lived experiences that tie deeply to the points that you're trying to make are well received. We will grab onto those ideas much more readily and actually remember the things that you're trying to convey more easily because we can associate it with a specific person, a specific company, and it's authentic. It's just so real that we can't help but live it with you. And, as you're kind of reliving it or talking through what that process or experience was like. So I would encourage you to think about the professional experiences that you've had and how they might tie into any future presentations that you have to give or any presentations that you have to give, because it really changes the think of how you speak and the kind of information you share and like how easy it is. It's much easier to tell your story, to say, this is what it was like for me. Like I lived this and here's how it relates to change. I was at this stage. At first I denied it and then I resisted because I thought, I don't really want to go through these changes. They sound hard. But then I, maybe thought it's possible and I started to think through like what some of those shifts might be. And then, I accepted and flourished and had a different perspective. And then really take us through that whole experience. And I think in that way, it lends itself to being more attainable, but also being very memorable and benefit as well as yourself. So practice, everybody really try and practice that kind of presentation as well. This was very content heavy, a lot of good information, really well done. But also like when you did talk about your lived experience, like everyone's like, oh, really? What was that like? Right? Like what did you really experience in that moment? So I look around and everyone was paying quite attention, and you brightened up as well.
Yeah, I was so happy.
Yeah.
Because the salary was like, something which I was not expecting.
Right.
Okay, I won't accept it.
Yeah. I think it was about 10 to 11 minutes.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah. If I look back on it, you can check on the video, but it's something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But thank you. Great improvement. Really great job. Well done.
Well, hello, everyone. I hope y'all are doing all well today. Doing pretty good?
Yeah.
Alrighty, great. So I'm gonna start us off with a video. Won't do the activity this week. But it'll kind of help us understand what topic I'm trying to convey to everyone.
Out of Moscow. What's the top price beta will pay? Well, Lipton put the market value at 100. All right, so we need to get the stock to 102. That's 17 more a share. Yeah, I can add, no. We're already in danger of missing our quarterly. We start fooling around and miss our numbers again. No, we don't need to get the stock to 100. We got in the mid-90s. How are we supposed to boost the share price again? Increased efficiencies, lowering costs. More downsizing. Suppose we try that stunt again and the stock stalls again. Increasing market value is a stunt. We should at least consider alternatives. How about selling healthcare? What? Maybe Lipton's right. Gene, come on. Healthcare is the only division that's exhibiting any growth. I'm not breaking up the company. All right. How about selling the new headquarters building? We're going to need that space. Not if we keep firing people, we're not. I'm not selling the new building. You know, the human resources, have them start making up a list for another round of downsizing. Wait a minute, Jim.
All right, so today I would talk a little bit about organizational downsizing. One of the things that I noticed with the reading is they kind of talk about organizational change, but they don't really talk about what those changes can be. And this is something that I've been seeing very frequently on LinkedIn. And it's something that actually didn't really affect me, but it affected my organization. So a little bit about myself. This is me. I'm Kayla Cannon. So I started working in Best Buy in 2020, around in October. That was when the pandemic was kind of slowing up, but it was still there. I came on as a occasional seasonal product flow specialist, that's what they like to say. And then I was promoted to full-time after the holidays. So around January, February, I was promoted to having a full-time position. Also, a few weeks I have been employee of the month 3 times. And then now I am out here in California and I was promoted as a home theater technician. So that is what I do, in case anybody asks. No, I do not do computers. I really don't know what to do.
That's true. You're a wizard.
So why do I bring this up about myself and then with the video? So the biggest thing is I don't know if y'all know, but in 2021, just a few months after I got hired, Best Buy did a massive layoff of 5,000 employees. They closed multiple stores. A lot of the people that was in my store that were full-time employees, they were affected by it just because of the fact that they didn't have as much hours to give to them. And it was easier to put a full-time, have more part-time people and lower the amount of full-time people. Part-timers are able to just get whatever hours the company is willing to give them. So where I've been seeing this at also is that Best Buy is going through another massive layoff. Some of my friends from the San Bernardino store, they closed a whole department down, which was our parcels department. One of the biggest things, which I think Melanie was talking about it earlier, was, I don't know if y'all seen it, but on LinkedIn, there has been massive layoffs, especially in big tech companies. So for whatever reason, I know a lot of us, some of us are already in our careers that we would like to be in. And then there's a lot of us that are just trying to get our foot into the water. And sometimes they can be very discouraging, just because I know for some of us, we would love to work for the Googles, the Netflix, the Twitters, and it just is kind of disheartening to see this type of stuff. So I kind of wanted to dive into it a little bit more as figuring out what is downsizing and why do organizations do it. So with that, downsizing for an organization can deal with typically a macroeconomic shock, or as we would like to call it, a recession. With that, organizations doing this for decades, where they reduce the workforce, and by reducing the workforce, they reduce labor costs, increases profitability, and then also prevents organizational collapse. With this, they like to see short-term profit maximization. And then also, it can create two groups of people in the workplace, which will be displaced or victim workers, and then the survivors. So why is this not? A lot of us will be going into HR roles possibly, and we will have to be the ones that are preparing layoff plans. With that, we have to be able to reallocate jobs for the people, for the survivors that are staying, and then maintaining the employee engagement and satisfaction. Because studies show that with downsizing, a lot of employees have a lack of job satisfaction, work exhaustion, and organizational commitment. And then we also have to be the buffer and supporting the ones that survive the situation. So some of the things that I would like to say as far as tips and tricks and takeaways for those that would like to be in HR positions that may have to deal with downsizing in their organizations. First would be empathetic, understanding that there are actually people that are going through the possibility of losing their jobs. This is their livelihood. They have families, they have, things that they have to pay bills on. So understanding also for the survivors that for them, it's like they barely were scathed by it. They barely were able to get out of it. So understanding that they will have that fear and allowing them to be open and honest and talk to them, having that conversation to allow them to talk to you about it. Being transparent, you have to be able to say, look, this is what's going on in the company, and these are our goals and what we're going forward. That way there is no room for worry and then rumors getting started. By being overly communicative, you're able to ease those fears that maybe they may get fired from their job, and then establishing new goals with making those new jobs for those individuals. And then also having a vision and a plan, understanding that you have to have typically a 30, 60 day and a 90-day implementation. So that way, not only your company knows, but your employees know where you plan on going and where they are in that process. And then the last thing would be give back to employees. Just giving those little small sacrifices, such as team lunches or even holiday pay, would definitely help with getting them to be more open to the change that is happening. So this were some of the things that happened with me at Best Buy, and I am grateful for them allowing me to be there and for them basically implementing a lot of this stuff to make me feel safe and secure in my position. Thank you.
I really like how you made it relevant to everything going on LinkedIn, because I know a lot of people that were in recruiting that finally made it to tech companies, and that's I feel like a lot of HR and recruiting goals, just because you get paid the non-tech, or you get paid tech money in a non-tech role. So I thought it was really cool how you made it super relevant.
I really liked your About Me section, so that way to get to know you a little better.
I figured everyone's done one, so I might as well just.
I'm insanely curious how you pulled that clip. Did you just remember that from a movie you watched? Or
This one?
the movie we watched at the beginning? Yeah. It was so relevant because I had no idea how companies made that decision. So.
Actually, no. I just looked up downsizing.
Oh.
I don't want to lie to you guys.
Good Googling.
Well, it was a really good clip. And then logistically too, it was just ready to go. It's in the PowerPoint. I think I'm too intimidated to put a video in just because of time and ads and things like that. So I thought that was really cool. So it was just ready to go. I get that too. It's like videos that rarely go flawlessly and you're doing so great job. I also love like how there's like little things about your presentation that were clearly like intentional, like the diversity in the graphics that you use and also the subtitles that you put in the video, like little things like that that were very like accessible were awesome.
Thanks for sharing your personal experience with the downsizing and tying it into the presentation, because I think the tips you gave at the end, you know, were all much more relevant. I mean, to Dr. Fuller's point earlier, right? It was because your personal story and experience, it almost gave it like more authority, like that, you know, this is whatever I went through this. And, but you also had the audience in mind by thinking, hey, a lot of you guys are going to go into HR, you know, so these are things you need to think about. So yeah, that was really nice.
I really appreciated the logistics. You prepared everything so well. The video was really well done, incorporated within the presentation itself. It was embedded in there really well. Everything went so smoothly. I appreciate the time and dedication it takes either to do that or to be so good at doing it, it takes you less time, right? So I do think you're a wizard in technology. You do a phenomenal job in that. We really appreciate you in that domain. The content itself was relevant. Like that's the word that comes to mind for me. It's just incredibly relevant and timely. There's, I mean, this isn't an economics course or anything, but there's a lot that hinges on just the state of the economy. And whether we're in a recession or not, you know, still undecided, I guess. But all the vast majority of projections are that unemployment is going to increase substantially in the next year, maybe a year and a half. So there's a downturn at the very least, if not full out recession. And to what extent that'll affect us, we should have an understanding of what that looks like, what role we play in that, how to navigate that difficult space, and how also not to be a part of the downsizing outcomes, that we don't want to be downsized ourselves. And so how to wrestle kind of with that. Being aware of it, I think is really important. It's helpful to acknowledge that this is a difficult time to pursue employment at this very moment. It's going to be more selective. It's going to be a little bit more challenging. But the opportunities are still there because I think you've identified that, yes, there's downsizing. There's also like these kind of more grassroots type approach in companies and organizations because there's more innovation potentially at this time, because people are leaving, especially tech companies right now. Growth companies, tech companies are freezing hiring or laying a lot of people off. So in that sense, there's opportunity for those people to start new companies or enter into other spaces. So there's still opportunity there, but it's a little, it is more difficult. It just is more difficult right now. Something that, as you were going through the tips or some ideas, I thought everything you said was very relevant, very on point. Another thing that I think would be incredibly helpful is it's in the other research that we'll talk about at another time, but the shared vision. So the shared vision of an organization is one of the most impactful ways for people to increase in their engagement or participation in the actual company. That said, I say that because if you can explain, yes, we need to cut this many jobs, because if we don't survive. Like it's either we cut 10% of our workforce or we don't have a company, we cut 100%. Yes, it's tough for those 10%. We acknowledge that. Just be honest. That's really rough for them. But the decision is 100 or 10. And so that's that difficult calculus that we need to make. So I think people can get behind that if you remain in the organization to, like you, be thankful, like, okay, I'm glad I wasn't in the bottom 10%, but it's also an opportunity to move forward, to persist, to work hard, to engage, so that you're not in the 10% that are the people that, you know, were laid off or fired or whatever the case may be. So I think it's a little bit about the phrasing. It's a little bit about the perspective on it. And then I think the shared vision of like what the long-term vision is, what the sustainability path is for an organization. I don't know if that gets communicated to employees as often as it could be, and the benefits are clearly there. So that's another part where I think senior HR professionals, senior people in the human side of work have a responsibility to communicate that to the workforce that remains and those that leave. Like, this is just part of that calculation, right? So I thank you. This was a really great presentation. I loved the personal stuff there. It was really nice to see as well, but also solid content. You did a really great job. Thank you. Oh, how fun. We have like a little debrief time. I won't spend long, but I do want to, what are some of your observations today, but also throughout the semester? What are some of the key takeaways? And I'll do it through a kind of an appreciative inquiry lens. What do you think has been some of the best facilitation, not any specific instance or presenter, but what kind of patterns are you recognizing that you think that process, that thing, that type is going really well, and this thing I think we're doing really well, or anything like that? What do you see that as a group we're doing well?
I thought today was like a really good presentation day, just because we saw like Gen C and Delore, they use like collaborative teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kay was super relevant today. So it's just like, just using some of our transferable skills that we would use in the workplace. And this is like every day when we do presentations, but today, like I really noticed. And then like just using our past experiences or current experiences, that makes a presentation really cool. And it just shows like all the skills that we have that we can apply to our program and then in the workplace too.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Other thoughts? Things people are doing well as a group, things we're doing well?
I've been like perpetually blown away by people's creativity and just coming up with like fun, interactive ways to present information that would otherwise be kind of dull to listen to and not have that much like real life translation. But you guys have been really great at doing that. I'm not great, so I'm trying to absorb it from you.
It's good. Yeah.
I would say just taking the somebody help me out here. Taking the
Ideas.
tips,
Oh.
feedback, boom.
Yeah.
Taking the feedback.
Yes.
Each week, because I can definitely tell from the beginning when class first started.
Yeah.
And then seeing different things. I know like last time somebody told me, oh, you had a gum in your mouth, and I completely forgot just because. And I'm like, oop, toss my gum out. But just being able to, having people to give really good feedback where it's not just, oh, you did really great, but actually getting down to the nitty gritty of it. But then people taking that feedback as well has been really good. So it's a really good balance.
I agree. The responding to the feedback has been phenomenal.
And I feel like no one's nervous anymore. Like the nervousness has really died down.
Everyone, the presenters won't agree with you, but the audience is like, yeah, you're doing great. You don't even look nervous, and they're up here. No. But it certainly appears that they're very confident and comfortable in front of the class, as opposed to in the beginning, it appeared like they were nervous. Yes. And maybe some of that anxiety is lessened, hopefully, over the course of the semester. Nick.
Just like the personal feedback, but overall, I feel like everyone's PowerPoints has like improved dramatically. Like it's like clearly you could see that most people didn't say like specific feedback on the PowerPoints, but everyone over the course of this term has been getting so much better, visually pleasing as well.
I think a lot of times the presentations that stand out are the ones that take it a step further, that it's not just presenting the facts, but it's making it practical or bringing in their own personal experience to let people look inward at their own experiences. So I'm not, in like the presentations that I think I remember more are the ones that like take those steps as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, I think for those that maybe don't feel like they have as much personal experience to bring, the ones that ask thought-provoking questions have that same impact. You know, that are, if it's not a story, but they're saying, you know, but I was wondering how would this apply in this setting, and then they get to thinking. Like it is taking it that step further, and I think seeing that spectrum of just people's brains working, you know, it has been like a trend. Like that seems to have like gone upwards as the semester's gone on.
Yeah. Thought-provoking questions and difficult situations, really complicated downsizing type presentations. Like, how in the world do we navigate that? And I think they're great. It's not like we have the solve all panacea kind of solution, but bring it up, get the wheels turning. Yeah, good point.
How do you think like Elon Musk taking over Twitter is gonna change like the way social media is?
What are your thoughts there?
Decentralizing.
Decentralizing?
I'm just saying that that's what it's going to do, but whether it's good or bad.
Everyone's just like, oh, I don't know.
Well, even like that's something I've seen a lot on LinkedIn, and then just even votings tomorrow. And I didn't even know before, after I seen it promoted on LinkedIn, like the way that we vote tomorrow is really gonna affect HR and stuff they do apparently. I've only read a few articles, but yeah, that's just stuff I saw on the internet this week.
The internet this week, yeah, Leah.
I think it's relevant to voting because the more powerful you are, the more, it's like the more money you have, the more power you have.
Yeah.
Wealthier people are starting to gather all the power. And I mean, if you had $44 billion, wealthy people are no longer building libraries and doing good things. They are buying social media companies and owning the airwaves. So unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of downsizing, and the voice of the masses is going to be restricted, and they're going to care less about what we say or what we do because they're going to own virtually everything.
Okay, so Leah, can I play devil's advocate for just a moment? I'm not endorsing a position, I'm just presenting another side here. So part of Elon, because we're on a first name basis, part of
We're gonna have Thanksgiving with
yeah, there we go. Part of the narrative on Elon taking over Twitter is to promote free speech, to allow more voices to speak more freely and not be deplatformed. That's part of his that's part of the talking points. Yes, in theory, that is part of it. I don't know in actuality what will happen, but that's part of the thought process and MO and talking points that he's trying to promote. And as a first step, beyond like the huge downsizing that's happening at Twitter, that will happen over time. Part of the other thing that he's trying to make it profitable with is charging for the blue check mark. Right? $8. So $20, got an argument with Stephen King. Now it's like $8, which I think it's fascinating to me as a social scientist to look at who's most upset about that and why they're upset about it. The people that are most upset about it tend to be those that have a blue check mark because it was really difficult to get. and it provides you with a tremendous amount of authority.
That's a blue check mark, I've never used it.
Verified. It just like it's a blue check mark that means you're verified, and it's kind of a popularity contest because you had to have tens of thousands of followers, kind of prove that you are who you are. But there were ways around it, and people could buy like blue kind of other means. Yeah.
On the free speech aspect
Yeah,
of it,
yeah.
since his takeover, we have seen a 500% increase in hate speech.
That's a little bit of a misnomer in that did happen, but there are the evidence, the data is really suggesting that was a specific 4chan bot hack, that these were bots that were created that had no followers, were speaking to no one. They're just posting, and he didn't do anything. Like he even posted, he didn't do anything yet in terms of moderation, content, anything. Yes, that is technically true, but it has nothing to do with Elon Musk. And it's everything to do with just a coordinated effort of a few that produced a lot of bots to post a lot of hate speech. And to do with them, it's just a negative news story about Elon and Twitter. But I don't see a lot of relevance there in terms of like actual hate speech and its increase. So, but I mean, you're not wrong. It's just, you know what I mean? Like not authentic in the amount of hate speech that's either there or not there. But to the point of like the $20, what's that?
The check mark.
The check mark, yeah, to the point of the $20, $8 check mark. I'm really upset with it are those that like Stephen King's like, forget it, you do this, I'm off the platform, I'm not doing it, because he has so much authority. And think about like, we just take what anyone with a blue check mark says at face value because they've been verified. They are an authority. They're an expert. They have this blue check mark on this digital platform that says they know what they're talking about.
It's less than $100 a year.
No, I mean, right? No, I'm with you. Like the actual cost is not it. If you're missing the point, the money means nothing. It's that anyone. That's the problem. Anyone could have a blue check mark now. I mean, that's the thing. $8. That means everyone can have a blue check mark. That's like, has anyone read Dr. Seuss? I read a lot of Dr. Seuss. I have kids. Does anyone remember the Stars on Thars book? Yeah, okay. So this is it, right? In practice. The guy comes with a little machine to stamp a little star on someone's stomach, and they say, look, I got this great star. And then he's like, oh, that's amazing. I want one of those, and gets one. So then there's an arms race, because then you get like 2 stars. Now 2 stars is the cool thing. And then it's like 3 stars. And then it comes full circle to back to no stars. That's the cool thing. So it's this arms race of power and status, being verified on Twitter or some social media platform to say like, I'm an authority. I have expertise. I'm someone you should listen to. And people are paid quite a bit of money for their endorsements and for their promotion of particular products or anything because of the mass following they have, because of that verification. It's away. Not take it away. If you take that power away by distributing it more evenly throughout for everybody, then that's a massive social upheaval in power. So my pushback is, I don't know if you're wrong, but in terms of like the accumulation of power and communication being owned by a single person, like Twitter being owned by a single person is a scary thought. Like it's a terrifying idea. And he's asking us to trust that his intentions are good and that he wants to make this a free speech platform for the world. That's his stated goal, as his own Twitter post says. So do we trust him? Do we believe him?
Does he have a blue check?
Yes, he does. But he did before the $8 thing. So
1 billion times over.
Yeah, many billion times over. It's interesting. I think it's a good question. I think there are really important points about who gets to speak and who has authority and who is considered verified or not, and what that means. These are things we need to wrestle with socially. And then as IO psychologists, I think it's really important to study these power dynamics and these differences between people, and does it actually create a more egalitarian free speech platform or not? And these are things we need to wrestle with and figure out. Yeah.
Don't like necessarily if people, because my sister is she has a super big following, and she's applied to have a blue check mark on Instagram multiple times, but she's been denied.
Right.
But I have friends that were like former D1 athletes that have way smaller of a following than she does, and they got their blue check mark.
Right.
So it's like, I feel like
It's not like a consistent process. That's one of the most like the most relevant complaints. It's that it's not systematic. It's like favorites, right? Like just they're picking whoever they feel.
But that's why I feel like it being accessible on Twitter now, like a lot of people, it's like, okay, if you go to their page and they have a blue check mark and they have like 5 followers or like 1,200 followers, like that's not a lot of followers,
Right.
even if somebody has a blue check mark. So
Right.
it's like people look at that and they're like, okay, this person has a blue check mark, but they're following and their like activity on their page doesn't match.
Right.
So I feel like people that kind of know how analytics work when it comes to like blue check marks won't fall for that, more that like people that don't really know how credibility works on the internet.
It's a good point, because it becomes just one more aspect that you could measure or assess someone's quality and content. Like, should I trust this person? And then you have to go through the list of things. How many people kind of like in consensus, right? Like that's how social influence happens. Like, is there consensus around this person? Do a lot of people follow them? Have they posted on this before? Are they an expert in this space? What's their education or experience like? Like, are they an expert on the topic that they're even talking about? Or are they going off on something else? It all starts to be part of the calculus in that way.
Yeah, I could see it really suffering with people that don't really know like media literacy, that fall for like clickbait news. Or like, you know how with Facebook there's a really big problem with like storing around that like the Onion or like stuff like that, like people that can't tell the difference between like credible news sources and whatnot.
And
I see that-
sarcasm, right?
Yeah, I see that like being a really big issue with people like that.
Right. It's possible. Yeah. So it's worth like having the discussions and having the debates and arguments over what free speech means. And it doesn't mean you can say anything you want to say, right? There's still limits, right, on that. Like free speech doesn't mean you get to just scream movie theater. Like that's not what it means. So like, what does it mean on a digital platform in a space? I've heard comedians, because I like comedy, it just makes me feel better sometimes when I'm super stressed. So comedians are asking for like, we want and need a button that says like a font or something to say, I'm joking here. Because that's some of the difference in what the comedians are experiencing as well. They're being held accountable to things that they say because and it's their fault. Sometimes they're saying things in a comedy show or in a setting where comedies expect outrageous, outlandish things because it's funny. But then they're on Twitter espousing their beliefs and endorsing opinions, not in a humorous way. They're trying to be serious. But we don't have there's no way to tell. Like it's words on a page, and there's no real clear, identifiable way to say like, well, this was a joke. This was not a joke. We don't have a good way of assessing that. And like you said, the media literacy, like trying to understand how to navigate this space is increasingly difficult because our inputs are more limited. Of like the context of the environment, this is said at a comedy club, don't take it seriously. Or this is said on Twitter, maybe we do, maybe we don't. Like the president and many presidents have been posting on Twitter all throughout Twitter's like existence, right? So if it's a place where we're learning about government policy and that's the like first place that it's posted, and yet it's the same place that, you know, I was going to say like some Kardashian, I don't know anything about the Kardashians, but like some like other thing is being posted that has nothing to do with policy or is serious in any way, right? Like how do we on the same media platform? It's kind of crazy that that's even an expectation. So I do think it's a worthwhile like place to kind of navigate, like what does it mean? Like how how do we navigate this? Something I'll say, and for the PsyD students, I'll say this now because you won't get me in a class later. Over 50% of companies that are hiring look at social media of their candidates. And about 32 to 33% of the people that don't get hired were not hired because of what they post. A third of people aren't hired because of their social media accounts. I think that's crazy. That's a high number, a really high number. Quite surprised by that. I don't think that's going away either. Like, that's only going to increase. Although maybe you know this better than I do, how to navigate that space more anonymously. Whereas, I'll just post myself like, yeah, it's me. I am me. I do what I do. So I don't know if you're incognito. Anyways, I think you're doing a phenomenal job. I would like to see people keep up the professionalism and continue to present and really use this opportunity to flex those muscles, to really develop that professional caliber, because you will find yourself sooner than later in a professional setting where that needs to be a you speak, a refined way that you look, and a refined way that you act, because that's going to be the expectation. I only say that because I do see you as a very accomplished group with very high caliber and talent. So, and try to work on ways in which you can refine your presentations. I think everything has been great, and I would just say continue on that path. It's not a critique. It's just a way in which I can encourage you and see that I see you growing in. So that's one thing that I would like to encourage you as well. All right, have a wonderful evening. I will see you next week, but not the week after, because we have Thanksgiving. So that's posted on there. All right, take care, drive safe. Oh wait, you're not going home. Enjoy the rest of your evening.